Hey guys, my name is Jared and welcome to Slash It. If you'd like, I'd like to ask you to go follow my Twitter at @slashhorror and my Instagram /_horror. Okay, without further ado, let's just get into the video. So as you all know, horror movies tend to have a sort of outline to them. The slasher subgenre is no stranger to this and honestly is one of the biggest culprits and maybe the originator of this idea of an outline. It solidified its existence in Halloween and Black Christmas. Halloween definitely blew it into the atmosphere with its ability to make Jamie Lee Curtis a star, and the way it pushed slasher movies into the spotlight really showed how this outline was enjoyable, entertaining, and most importantly for companies and movie producers all across the world, easy and affordable to create. The outline of the slasher film is where someone kills some kids and then there's the final girl, as well as what happens when you drink alcohol, do drugs, or have relations with someone. So let's get into the outline that defines the slasher genre.
There's a formula to it, a very simple formula.
The opening kill is definitely the first step in any horror movie. The opening kill defines how the movie will go, the tone of its kills, how gory or not gory, what kind of weapon would be used, and how the kills would be shot during most of the movie. There are various cases for this. A prominent example that is most commonly associated with the opening kills is Halloween 1978. The setting of the two teens having relations, Michael then walking into his sister's rooms and stabbing her repeatedly in the chest. And this entire time it was Michael's point of view, so you didn't know. But when he walks back outside, a car shows up, and it's a couple. The dad unmasks us, quote-unquote, breaking the POV, and it turns out the person that killed the girl was A, Michael, and B, Michael as a young boy. This was definitely a shock for many people, and with the twist being done the way it was, it solidified itself as a surefire way to start a slasher film. The opening kill is one of the most iconic staples of any horror movie, because of the precedent it sets, and the fact that it usually gives a slight plot jump into what we should be expecting for the rest of the movie in terms of plot advancement. In the first 10 minutes, you usually can tell where the movie is headed based only on the opening kill. The title card with the theme music is a staple of any horror movie. A flashy title card makes everyone who watches it understand exactly what kind of movie they're getting themselves into. Halloween and Friday the 13th are perfect examples of prominent and flashy title cards. These are some of the most famous title cards from any horror movie and are often referenced. We'll start with perhaps the most iconic of the two Halloween title cards. This title card is not only a title card but also includes the pumpkin. So the pumpkin basically is a part of the credits until the very end where we see Michael Myers' face and him holding a knife in the pumpkin. And then the title card John Carpenter's Halloween, which proceeds to fade to black. The reason this is so iconic is for a couple reasons. First off is the iconic music that is playing during all of it and plays during other key moments of the movie. So during rewatches you feel the importance and iconicness of the music you are listening to. The next incredible iconic title card is Friday the 13th. This title card is slightly different from Halloween, as it's literally a title card smashed onto the screen. The title card, which is simply Friday the 13th, smashes onto the screen, breaking the glass on the screen. That paired with the swirling iconic theme that plays, and brings us straight into the credits, definitely makes this title card iconic as any other, and plays a heavy hand in the title cards of many more movies, title cards, and themes. Now let's move from the title cards to another step on how to make a slasher film. The time jump isn't as common as the tropes previously mentioned. It occurs mostly in standalone or first in a series and less so in sequels. These usually happen for the sake of plot and aren't in every slasher movie. In fact, a very common staple in slasher film sequels is that there isn't a time jump and that it takes place directly after its predecessor in that line of films. Not necessarily the first, but the most common example when you combine the idea of slasher films and time jump is, again, Halloween. In the opening kill, you have Michael Myers as a child, and then you have him 15 years later driving a car escaping from Smith's Grove Sanatorium. I'm not the only one to ever say this, but how exactly does a kid who grew up in a sanatorium and when they're 15 years older know how to drive a car when he was like 7? Yeah, I don't know. The entire point of this is the fact that the entire movie they talk about him as a kid who was purely evil. They never mention him directly as an adult in the original Halloween. This is what's so important for the time jump to have happened the way it did, is because it makes Michael seem even more mysterious. One of the other examples of this would be Halloween 2, where it takes place the same night and right after the events of Halloween. Laurie Strode is in the hospital where the entire movie takes place. In Halloween 2, instead of just placing the ending of the original onto the beginning of the second one, they decided the best way was to reshoot everything which showed care. It's hard to understand exactly why they think just placing the ending of the original movie on top of the new one is worth it unless it's just because it's inexpensive. So this is the part of a slasher movie where we are introduced to the characters we will be following for the remainder of the film. This is super common in movies like Friday the 13th, where it happens right after either the time jump or the connection to the original, depending if it's a sequel or not. For example, in the original Friday the 13th, we meet the campers because the character we meet in the opening is looking to make their way to Camp Blood, or Camp Crystal Lake as we actually know it. She's looking to get there because she's a camp counselor there for the summer. Eventually, they make their way to the camp, and that's when we are introduced to our other main characters. They all have been there for quite a while beforehand. When we get to the camp, they're messing with some wood. When the camp counselor who was looking for Camp Crystal Lake got there, they were told to go painting. During this and the surrounding scene, before any of these characters are killed, there are many scenes establishing the kinds of people these characters truly are. Okay, I'll go a little bit more into depth and the next example of this would be, of course, the original Halloween 1978. First, we are introduced to Laurie Strode, who has to go to the Myers house to drop off a key. On her way there, Tommy Doyle comes up to her and they have a short conversation, showing that presumably Laurie had babysat him before. Later on, there's the very famous scene of the three girls walking down the street. I can't talk about all the banter between them and say somewhat streamlined, but in terms of character development, it makes most horror films look like they're created by a 10-year-old. Anyways, the character development between those three leading to the events of the movie that I won't get into right now makes sense of how they react to communicate based on what happens. This goes back to my previous topic, but Scream is the perfect basis for both the introduction of the main character and the opening kill. The opening kill is where Drew Barrymore dies by Ghostface, which is probably one of the most famous opening kills in any horror movie. Right after the opening kill, they cut straight to the main character, Sidney Prescott, on her very 90s computer. I love the way we are just thrown into the characters in this movie, and they appear to have been friends for a while. This is why I love this movie so much. The next part of this video is the one that is most stereotypical when you look at slasher films. This is one stereotype that is the difference between a slasher film that is trying to be different and one that is just trying to imitate the others. Let's look at it this way. In every single Friday the 13th sequel, the camp counselors are having relations and doing drugs, while others that try to change the genre like Scream don't include these things in such a casual way. The best way to make a slasher movie stand out is by not including these things unless they're absolutely essential to the plot. Unlike most slashers where they have relations just purely because they're trying to get people into the theater. I don't like how when this happens, they don't try to fit what's happening into the plot at all, but rather shoehorn it into the movie wherever they possibly can. I think producers of slasher movies at their core are starting to realize that we won't go into a movie theater to see that anymore. The way we watch horror movies have changed a lot since the 1980s. We care more about the tension and the kills than we do about anything else. Movies that tend to cater more towards profit will have characters with lackluster personalities, when they would make more money if they tried to convince us that the characters we're watching are rooted in reality and are actually smart. This would help us connect to our characters more. The best example of this is Friday the 13th or Halloween. Halloween focuses less on the drugs, more on the relations, which is an interesting thing that questions why people come to see horror movies. Halloween features teenagers, late high school, probably seniors, but I'm not 100% sure on that or anything. Anyways, they do what teenagers do, but I can't say that because of, YouTube and age restrictions. When they do this, and it's in the script, it does feel genuine, but I often wonder why this movie made so much more money, and it's more than likely because of these things I can't say on YouTube. For whatever reason, it's written into slasher film scripts so often. The fact that it's a staple and pinnacle of most slasher movies is undeniable. The first kill in a slasher movie is the most important and tone-setting kill in the entire movie. It shows how our slasher will kill their victims, how long or drawn out the kills will be, and how the movie will set the tension before each one of them. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an amazing example of this. This movie has a different tone than the rest. There is no opening kill, and there isn't a time jump either. The first kill that does happen in this movie, however, is what makes it so memorable. We have a group of probably college-age kids trying to drive to Texas to get to their grandparents' abandoned house. They find a farmhouse and go into it to see if someone can help them get gas for their car. The one man walks into the house, yells to try to get someone's attention, and as he walks further into the house, trips into the kitchen and gets beaten over the head with a mallet. He shudders and flails on the floor and gets hit again. Leatherface pulls his body into the room and slams the door shut. Watching this for the first time, not knowing that this scene was coming, is the first time a slasher film actually straight up terrified me. It's so out of nowhere. The tension is slightly there, but not actually enough for you to know something is happening. After that scene, every beat of the movie is full of tension and drama. The slasher film often tries its hardest to put every ounce of importance and thought into the first kill in the movie, post the opening kill. The way they do that often depends if and how the movie will be during its kills. Some movies opt to be bloody and graphic, others try to be more subtle, going for the less is more approach. The way these kills are written often make or break the entire movie. Horror movies that become iconic have amazing and intense kills. This is the most stereotypical thing to happen in a horror movie. A group of teenagers split apart into groups of 2 or 3, and after that, a masked killer kills all of them. I know I've been talking about these movies a lot, but look at what happens in movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or even Scream. The teenagers most of the time split up in some way or the other. Sometimes it's on purpose, other times it just happens. But when the teenagers split up, that's how you know someone is about to die. If you pay attention when the teenagers leave, you may just be able to tell who's going to be the one to die first and who may get away. For example, I'm going to the crown jewel of slasher movies, Halloween. In Halloween, the teenagers are together in the beginning of the movie walking on the sidewalk, but when they split up later on in the film, we see that them splitting up is what ultimately led to the downfall of most of them. If you watch a movie like Scream, for example, which I would do if you're trying to study slasher movies as a subgenre, you'll see how they specifically point out to you how they're going away or they're alone. This is specifically because big name slasher films set the precedence of the main beats of a slasher movie that every slasher movie after tends to try to repeat to. Horror movies copying each other is a giant issue that I will explain in another video. But anyways, the teens will decide that their best course of action is to go about their separate ways, and with that, their fate of getting stabbed, chopped, or otherwise killed is set in stone. This is the part where horror movies will tend to stray a little from each other, but will often share some of the same beats and ideas. One beat more often than not is that another couple will do an illegal or immoral activity, and then proceed to have relations. For example, in Halloween, yes, I reference Halloween so much, but come on, you know. In Halloween, when 2 of our characters were supposed to be babysitting, one of them ditches to go have relations with her boyfriend in one of the kids' parents' houses. This is very immoral, and they both end up paying the price by getting murdered by Michael Myers. This happens in other movies such as Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The next little variant is a twist ending. This doesn't happen in many slasher movies, but the ones there is one are absolutely amazing. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but Sleepaway Camp has an amazing ending that definitely makes you rethink the entire movie and what that entire movie is actually trying to portray. Whether you think the ending is slightly problematic, that's entirely up to your viewpoint, but I personally am not sure where I stand. I can't say anything else without spoiling. In some other slashers, this is the part where the movie tends to finish with a setup to the sequel. These are more prominent movies where they're in the middle of a bunch of sequels, for example, Friday the 13th or Halloween sequels. Well, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and make sure to stick around because I have some interesting things to tell you. Well, first off, I'm starting a blog. I'm not sure how often I'm going to be posting there, but I will be, and I think you all will love the content that I'm posting there. Second is I have some amazing series coming up that I think you all will absolutely love. Make sure to stick around to watch them all. Well, follow my social media at @slashithhorror and /it_YT on Instagram. And follow my other YouTube channel /personal Twitter over at JarJarYT and at JarJar801 on Instagram. Thank you for watching, and like always, treat every day like it's Halloween.